Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. Many interesting things happening this morning. So there were a couple of big rallies yesterday for Harris Walz, one in particular in Detroit. Huge crowd and a big new poll that is going to raise a whole lot of eyebrows. So we'll get into all of that. We also have more behind the scenes reporting of how she chose Tim Walz over Josh Shapiro. So we'll break all of that down for you. Republicans have dropped a new line of attack alleging stolen valor against Tim Walz. So I'll show you all of those details and talk about whether or not we think that one will land. There is a horrific new video that we have of that rape of Palestinian prisoner by IDF soldiers. Remember, this is the situation that led to a riot in defense of these soldiers and their right to rape Palestinians. There's also a debate apparently unfolding on Israeli TV where you have commentators who are upset that this rape is not systematized. Of course, it may actually be. So we'll get into all of that. Our own Ryan Grimm also asking the State Department some important questions there. I'm taking a look in a monologue today about why I think Tim Walz could be such a consequential pick. And Jeff Stein of the Washington Post has done an extraordinary job reporting out the failure over years of our sanctions regime. So we're going to talk to him about that. Really a fantastic piece of reporting there.
Incredible piece. Took him months and months to do. So really excited to dive into it with a lot of him. And what else? Let's see. We've got 89 days. We're just looking at the countdown clock this morning till Election Day. Pretty stunning. The vast majority of the election up until the last month or so was actually quite boring. You know, we were a bit stunned. And then all of a sudden it becomes perhaps not only one of the closest, but most exciting presidential races in quite some time.
It got real interesting real fast.
It certainly did. I'm so excited for all of us to be at the DNC. Thank you to all of our premium subscribers for enabling that. BreakingPoints.com, where you get all the benefits of a premium subscriber and you get to support our work here. So continue to do that. Other than that, let's start with what Krystal said. I mean, we've got these incredible rallies, and really what it is an injection of massive enthusiasm into the Kamala Harris campaign. Let's go ahead and play some of this. This was at the arrival of one of her two rallies yesterday. And what's stunning is that this was the second one in Detroit, obviously Michigan, a critical battleground state. But look at the zoom out that we have in this airplane hangar. I mean, these crowd sizes are reminiscent really of the Obama campaign and the Trump campaign from 2016, where the crowd size, look, it's not everything, you know, losing candidates very frequently can draw large crowds, but this is not something that we had previously seen from the Kamala Harris or even the Joe Biden campaign. I remember these pathetic scenes, Krystal, of Joe Biden speaking in a high school gymnasium. This is not a high school gymnasium. And no matter what, any honest analyst can tell you, both from the data that we have and from the visuals of multi-hours, in some cases, the line, I believe, to get into her first rally in, I think it was Eau Claire in Wisconsin, was some 1.5 miles long, some 3 hours just to get into the space.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, I mean, look, like it is undeniable something is happening, you know, on the ground here.
Yeah, no, the level of excitement. I mean, compare this to Joe Biden.
It's stunning. It's crazy.
Total turnaround. And it's not just the crowd size, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
You see it in the polling data where previously Republicans had a massive advantage in terms of enthusiasm. Now Democrats, at the very least, have pulled even with Republicans in terms of enthusiasm. Now listen, were most of these people going to vote the Democratic ticket anyway, whether it was Biden or Kamala, et cetera? Of course. But these are the people who are kicking in their $10, their $20. These are the people who are phone banking. These are the people who are posting about, you know, Kamala's brat and whatever online and generally creating a vibe of excitement and momentum. So in that respect, it really does matter. It really is astonishing to see the way this thing turned on a dime. We were talking before we started the segment today and was like, you know, we kept saying for like a year now, we've been saying, it just feels like something is gonna happen, and surely it did.
I mean, it didn't take a genius or, you know, be particularly prescient. It was more of a gamble that in general, politics is always can eventually end up interesting. Sometimes it doesn't,
you
but
at some point.
In this case, it certainly did. There was one moment though that we're all taking a look at were some highlights from the Kamala Harris campaign. We put together here some of the snippets that prosecuting the case, quote unquote, against Trump and how she is conducting herself. Also a clash with some protesters. Let's take a listen.
We fight for a future where every senior can retire with dignity. A future where we build a broad-based economy and one where every American has the opportunity to own a home, to start a business, to build wealth. And understand, in this fight, as Tim Walz likes to point out, we are joyful warriors. Joyful warriors. Because we know that while fighting for a brighter future may be hard work is good work. Hard work is good work. Focused on the future. The other, focused on the past. And Wisconsin, we fight for the future. We fight for a future where every worker has the freedom to join a union. Union strong. Union strong. Union strong. Union strong. Union strong.
I've been dealing with people like him my whole career. For example, as Attorney General of California, well, hold on, you know what? The courts are going to handle that part of it. What we're going to do is beat him in November.
He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
So, Krystal, I think that is the duality of Kamala Harris, the very generic Democratic language against Donald Trump. I mean, who am I here to sit here and judge? She's got a massive crowd size, she's got major enthusiasm, but you also, that took place, that second part, in Detroit, Michigan. Michigan, the site, of course, of a lot of the uncommitted voters. Allegedly, there was some meeting between her and some uncommitted voters prior to the rally, but then obviously the disruption and the protest, she very forcefully kind of shut them down and said, you know, by interrupting me, you're helping Donald Trump. So I think that was a good duality to show everybody.
That's 100%.
Right.
I mean, it is very Hillary Clinton-esque.
Absolutely.
And I think Emma Vigeland said online, like, using your like girl boss energy to shut down people who are worried about a genocide. I mean, we're going to cover some of the horrific things that are coming out of Israel with regards to their conduct in this war right now. So obviously, in my opinion, not a good look. I'm sure there are those who will appreciate that or whatever. But, you know, she has really risen in part on the strength of how much better she's doing with young people than Joe Biden, and you don't want to risk that. And she's, you know, earned a lot of goodwill also with the pick of Tim Walz, who was very respectful of the uncommitted voter group in the state of Minnesota. There was also a significant uncommitted movement there. He said basically, you know, they're saying something important. Their voice needs to be heard. So very respectful, very different tone coming here. However, you do point out, and I want to, you know, make it clear and be fully transparent. She did meet with the co-founders of the Uncommitted National Movement. This is per the New York Times. And they argued to her in favor of an arms embargo to immediately stop the carnage in Gaza. And she said she was open to that. And she gave them, they introduced them to two leaders, and they also asked for another direct meeting with her. So, you know, I do think that is different from what we know Biden was not meeting with them. He was not giving them the time of day. He was certainly not expressing any sort of openness to an arms embargo. So that's a good indication. The response in the rally is a bad indication. That's basically where we are.
Yeah, I think that's a very good summary. And that's where I think the duality and kind of where playing this out will continue. Don't forget, you know, we all continue overnight to always be on guard, as well as Israel. They're like, hey, what is going to happen here? You know, we've seen some indications about potentially a broader war. There are discussions right now by the Israelis where they believe Hezbollah is literally going to target Mossad headquarters in the middle of Tel Aviv. So it's like, well, now what, Madam Vice President? So where are we standing on this? You know, are we going to fully go to war for Israel under your administration? Are you going to support that? I mean, those are big question marks, and this could be a signal in either direction, you know, continuing. Now, let's say that doesn't happen, which is also, you know, I would say relatively likely, or escalation goes down, then it's going to stay to the domestic front where it is right now. And that is where she has probably seen the most enthusiasm, especially coming on the heels of picking Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. He hit the campaign trail yesterday at two of these rallies. He was very joyfully received. That's his new line. Let's take a listen.
He froze in the face of COVID, and it cost people's lives. He drove the economy into the ground. And make no mistake about it, Violent crime was up when Donald Trump was president. Those of you who are a little older know this. Older Republicans used to talk about freedom. These guys today, it turns out that freedom to them means government should be free to invade your exam room with your doctor. Now look, we're pretty neighborly with Wisconsin. We get our friendly battles, but in Minnesota, just like in Wisconsin, we respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choices for ourselves, because we know there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. Mind your own damn business. I don't need you telling me about our health care. I don't need you telling us who we love. And I sure the hell don't need you telling us what books we're going to read.
All right, so there's the line, happy warrior, almost a libertarian framing there. I would just say maybe you should extend that to some other issues, but we can talk about that and debate it later. I will just look at the rhetoric itself and the way that it is being received. I think the joyful line and that energy he's bringing to the ticket is smart. And the reason why is it gives them the change campaign that they didn't previously have. It gives them a veneer and an aesthetic previously, which obviously Democrats really were yearning for. And I think it combines, again, to bring it to the duality here, kind of in the way that Kamala Harris is being received, is for the vast majority of Democrats, especially boomers, they just hate Trump. They hate him, and they always just wanted somebody who, in their eyes, could beat him. Part of the reason enthusiasm was so low is they didn't like Joe Biden. They thought he was too old, and they wouldn't be able to prosecute the case against Trump.
Yeah.
Kamala really fulfills that. Then you got younger voters and a lot of others who are desperate to change the conditions of the Biden presidency. Kamala's real benefit here is that she's basically been memory hold for the last 3 years, shoved into a closet and not had any real public profile. Then she comes here, she doesn't have to fight for the ticket, doesn't do an interview, we'll get to that, doesn't do any debates, nothing, anointed, and then picks a number two. This number two is trying to inject like happiness, almost a Reagan-esque happy warrior style language, and that is exactly the reason why I think it's smart is if we look at the 1980 campaign, the happy warrior campaign for Ronald Reagan, so much of it was, let's just get the hell away from all this madness of the 1970s. And so there is a similar feeling right now, similar conditions, and it's the exact type of rhetoric that I would embrace if I were them.
Yeah, no, it gives the sense of like, we're turning the page, you know, her mantra of we're not going back, which she sort of stumbled upon, I think fits with that whole vibe as well. And, you know, the way he frames the position there on cultural issues of like, listen, mind your business. I think whichever party feels like the one that's, you know, monitoring what you're doing in your bedroom, in your life, et cetera. I think there is a sort of American just natural revulsion to that, which Democrats have at times definitely come across as being the party of that. And I think right now Republicans have gotten lost in that trap of feeling like they're the ones, you know, as he puts it, telling you what books your kids can read, you know, what you can do in terms of healthcare, and generally much more interested in the private decisions in your lives than.
Well, okay, since you brought it up, it's like, okay, we're gonna say, it's like, oh, fine. It's like, oh, we shouldn't be policing books. It's like, so are we defending like pornographic material in like children's libraries? I think that's sick and grotesque. But again, like I also know, and a friend of mine, I don't actually know his real name. He's an anonymous Twitter account, highly recommend him. His name is Ruben Rodriguez. And he highlights the very trap that I'm kind of falling into right now. If you start bringing up porn in kids' libraries, you sound, to borrow the governor's term, weird. Although I think it's real and I think it's gross. Now, how you message and talk about that is very difficult. Obviously, JD's had some struggles. I think Trump is probably the best at it. He's like, it's gross, we're gonna get rid of it, but we're all gonna move on.
He just doesn't really talk about it.
He acknowledges it a little bit. I mean,
I mean, the Trump has better instincts than like, you know, this is Vivek, Ron DeSantis, JD, definitely seem obsessed with these culture war issues. And so previously when it was Democrats who, you know, I think in 2016, there were all these debates about, you know, trans bathroom bills, et cetera. And it really felt like Democrats, you know, on that were more obsessed with what happened in the bathroom. Democrats were the ones out policing language. You can say this, you can't say that, et cetera, et cetera. You know, now you've got Trump running a campaign that's like obsessed with Kamala's race and gender. You've got a lot of, you know, tampon Tim attacks, et cetera. And so I do think that it very much comes across that they're obsessed with these niche cultural issues and missing the broader point. And so whether you agree with that assessment or not, I think the language lands, and I think it's a very good political framing.
I would not, look, I agree. Like the tampon thing, yeah, it's weird. Why are we putting tampons in boys' bathrooms? It's fucking weird, all right? But guess what? I'm not stupid. I know that that's gonna sound weird to the vast majority of people. And for most of them, they're like, hey, sure, whatever, let's talk about something bigger. So that would be my advice. Let's not stick to this main thing. I see it all over my freaking timeline. I'm like, guys, like this is not hitting, obviously, because people think that, it's niche. Now, even if you agree or disagree or whatever on the substance, like you gotta think about smart politically. So even though I think he's totally wrong, I do think that it is smart framing in general, whichever party is generally more libertarian on the issues, at least presenting wise, usually has a better shot. Part of the reason why pro-choice is so much more popular than pro-life. You have people who are even personally pro-life are like, yeah, I know somebody, whatever, want to be in this decision. I don't generally like telling people what to do.
Well,
so I'll leave it there.
And that's a good place to end because I think we both agree that, the most salient and powerful cultural issue right now is abortion.
Yes, and that's the problem, is that if you have trans, look, I agree. I think trans is very upsetting. I think it's a very important fight, but I'm not dumb and don't know that abortion is affecting way more people, and people are way more enthused about it because it is so much more urgent in a sense, where you have the Republican position so far out of step, not only from the median voter, but especially the median voter in the battleground state. And then the people who are affected by it are so much more enthused. I mean, it's just empirically true. Republican voters do not show up to vote based on transgender or CRT or any of this other stuff. We had the playbook in 2022. It just straight up didn't work. Democrats care a lot more about enthusiasm, and they'll crawl over broken glass to get them and 5 of their cousins to come out and vote for it. So that, as a sheer political strategy, it is a smart play for them to embrace for right now.
Yes. I think we have Trump out there posting about Brian Kemp to show the sort of things that he's focused on right now. I can put this up on the screen. We discussed this a little bit just to show you that he's apparently not moving on. He's the Attorney General of Georgia must get moving on this. So must Governor Kemp and the Secretary of State, Fulton County, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so apparently he's still obsessing over Brian Kemp, who is, of course, the extremely popular Republican governor of the important swing state of Georgia. So this is what he's spending his time on. I mean, it really does feel like he, in a certain sense, I understand. They thought they had Joe Biden. Right. They were looking at a massive electoral landslide. They were like, we're putting New Jersey into play, right? New Jersey's a new swing state. And now, and we can actually go ahead and put the next polls up on the screen. Now it's obviously a very different story. At best, it's a true toss-up. This is a new Wisconsin poll from Marquette. It has Kamala Harris up by 1 in the state of Wisconsin. So, this is what most of the battlegrounds look like. It is as tight as it could possibly be. Very different picture from when it was Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. The next one, it's an outlier. Let's put it up there, guys. This is a Marquette national poll. And when you put in, when you have the three-way race here with RFK in the mix, you've got Kamala Harris at 50% and Trump at 42%. An 8 percentage point lead. That is among likely voters, among registered voters. Harris is up 47-41. Previously, in this same poll, the last time they did it, when it was Joe Biden in the race, Trump led 44-41. So again, it's an outlier. We should, treat it as such. And, especially when you pair it with this very same pollster getting a 1-point lead for Kamala in Wisconsin, which is probably more reflective of where the race actually is. But this is the first time we've seen this kind of lead for her. And we should also be clear, Saagar, these are the types of polls that Joe Biden was getting regularly.
Yes, in 2020.
Last time around. So, are the polls understating Trump support as they did last time? Are they overstating Republican support as they did in 2022? We genuinely don't know, but it's important to keep in mind that when Biden did win, of course, in 2020, but it was so much closer than polls indicated, and he was seeing a lot of national polls and battleground state polls that had massive leads like this.
Yeah, that's a very important point. But another important point that we're learning is that if it is 50 to, 49 in Wisconsin, that doesn't include RFK Jr. on the ballot. That's just the head-to-head.
That's true.
If RFK Jr. is on the ballot, it's very clear in that national poll by Marquette that RFK is significantly bringing down a lot of Trump support. And so in this particular scenario, we have to factor in that RFK is going to be on the ballot, definitely in the state of Michigan and multiple other of the battleground states. Hasn't had any indication that he's going to drop out. He doesn't want to. He wants to run against Donald Trump. And it is extremely likely right now that if Donald Trump does lose, it will be largely because of RFK Jr. on top of Democratic consolidation and enthusiasm in the Democratic ticket. So I really don't want to look past that. And you put it all together, I think, I'm truly back to like a 50-50. Try not to overcorrect or anything, but I'm like, yeah, I think we're at a full-on toss-up. And that's where Cook Political Report, I think he sent this morning, has moved Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia all back into the toss-up category. And in a toss-up, the problem is that we only have 89 days until the election. You need to try and get some momentum. Donald Trump will be doing a press conference sometime later today. I think at the very least he should be doing something, but he has been absent from the campaign trail from now 4 or 5 days,
he's not
which is
really
shocking.
Doing rallies.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I saw, he's a conservative activist. He's like, JD Vance is doing 3 campaign events a day. Where are you? Why are you at Mar-a-Lago just sitting and stewing? In a sense, I think we can, I guess, empathize to a certain extent where you're like, wow, yeah, you thought you were in the bag. You thought this was a done deal. Now you're in a full-on toss-up. I'm not sure he mentally was prepared for that. I mean, if you think psychologically, 18 straight months of running against Joe Biden, and then in the very last stretch, this candidate gets switched out, all this massive amount of money, enthusiasm. So many of your polls are noisy right now because in a certain, think about it. When you inject a new person, especially like Tim Walz, people don't even know who Tim Walz is. People are walking around, they're like, who? And so when you have to make up your mind and put in new people, and then that really can scramble the way that people who have previously been very hardened in the way that they vote, which is very common, in a incumbent versus semi-incumbent in this race. It was one of the quote unquote the race that everybody was dreading, but significantly has changed all of that up. So I don't even know if I'm taking the polls all that seriously, except as a signal of Democratic consolidation.
Yeah.
Real head-to-heads, maybe a couple weeks out, I'll be like, okay, I think we've had enough time now. People can make up their mind.
I mean, one thing you can say for sure about this Marquette poll, because it's the very same pollster,
right.
I mean, the movement towards the Democrats has been massive in the switch out. There's no doubt about that. And the other thing that's been really interesting is Biden's approval rating has jumped up too.
Yeah, because he doesn't exist anymore.
Well, because, I mean, people are the happiest they've been with anything he's done as an administration is be like, I promise I won't be president again. People are like, yay, good job.
It's like a wax statue sitting in a museum.
In Kamala's approval rating has skyrocketed. In many polls at this point, she's above water in terms of approval rating, and that should be a low bar. But in modern politics, it's not. So the way that her polling has moved has been, I'm sure, astonishing to. It's astonishing to me. I'm sure it's astonishing to the Trump people as well. But the Biden thing is interesting in particular because one of the questions about his low approval rating, low poll numbers, et cetera, is how much of it is just about him being too freaking old and how much of it is about everything else that you may be upset with regard to the Biden administration. And it looks like the old thing was a really big deal, just given the fact that now that he said, guys, okay, fine, I'm out, I'm leaving, don't worry about it, his approval rating has also skyrocketed.
I've always believed that. I've always believed that his age has dragged down everything. I remember several months ago looking at Wall Street Journal, they did polls state by state. So they would ask people in Georgia, how do you feel about your economy, your state economy?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, plus 65%. How do you feel about the national economy? Minus 25. And a lot of liberals who are very much like unskew the economic sentiment were like, what's going on here? I don't understand. People are lying. I'm like, no, man, you don't understand. How I feel about the national economy is a proxy for I hate Joe Biden. And so now, like I said, that scrambles everything, keeping Biden out of the race. I'm not saying the economy is good or anything, but minus 25, let's say it goes to minus 2. Well, that's actually a massive advantage for Kamala Harris. I think it's been baked, bone marrow at the very center of the entire campaign. Just seeing this like aging, dementia-ridden figure at the top of the country is extremely demoralizing for everyone.
That's so
on the
true.
top of Democrats, it feeds into the way that you think about the optimism of a literal like functioning human being who can do a couple of campaign stops, and that's enough, you know, to shift things around. So that's really the state of the race could not have been more changed in the last couple of weeks. I think it is genuinely a true toss-up right now, and she has quite a bit of momentum. She's got remember this too, I was thinking about it, the Republicans picked their guy at the RNC, or coordinated their guy at the RNC right before the Biden decision, so they're not gonna get the RNC media bump, which you usually get. Now, usually those things don't matter because you've been running for 18 months. Who is this lady? Who is Tim Walz? We're gonna have 4 straight days of dedicated coverage, the entire national media. So the DNC media advantage here is immense because it's literally a brand new race and a brand new candidate. So there's so many inherent strengths. She's gone, what is it, 18 days now? Hasn't done an interview. We're about to get to that. Maybe I'll go 30 days, you know, if I'm her. Maybe I'll go 2 months. I'm not gonna do an interview up until the very last time. So I think that's the structural advantage here on the media side, on the Democratic side, on the money side too. I mean, they raised, $10 million in an hour after Tim Walz was selected. So there's a lot that is happening, and the Trump people should be afraid. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.